Hey everyone, it's story time with Phil here. So this one's about feedback. Now, if you like these kind of stories, drop a like, leave a comment. I'd love to continue to share as I go along on this journey of real estate. It's been almost 20 years and boy, I've got some stories. So this one's pretty simple. I just wanted to share feedback because a lot of times we get asked from our sellers, hey, how come no one's giving me feedback? And there's many reasons, of course. The top two reasons I see is, for me, one, if I'm going out and I'm showing 10 to 12 properties that evening and I'm getting 10 to 12 feedback requests the next day, because a lot of times us agents can have that on a system where within 24 hours, it's an automatic request. And then after that, I do another 24 hours after that if I haven't received any feedback. And of course, the third time I reach out and try to get it organically myself. If I've tried 3 times and I don't get feedback from an agent, I simply tell my sellers, guess what? It wasn't for them, obviously. But feedback to feedback does help. And the reason why that feedback helps is from peer to peer, we can help each other out and it helps the sellers. Okay, so if I were to share that feedback and it was because a wall color was off or maybe it was yellow and that deterred my buyers, I mean, I'm usually able to convey that and have them paint that or whatever. But nonetheless, whatever that feedback is, it had a smell, it was over cluttered, it backed onto something or a surrounding area wasn't their vibe. However I can share that feedback can help, obviously, the agent trying to sell the property, because they'll share that feedback with the seller and let them know like, hey, this is why they didn't like the property. Some of that stuff they can quickly fix and maybe it won't be the same reason for the next purchaser or potential buyer there. Other times you can't change the fact of location or whatever that might be. So feedback does help. Now, another reason why people may not share feedback, aside from having shown a million properties and just not wanting or remembering all the details of why they didn't like that said property, because again, I might share after 10 showings, wasn't for them. Again, that's not constructive feedback. That's not gonna help much, but I do like to give some sort of response, and I apologize. I do try to make my own notes as I'm walking through the properties so that I can share the feedback. All of that said though, there's another reason why some agents may not wanna share feedback and where I myself might get apprehensive on how and I word that feedback or what I share on that feedback, and this would be it. You see, there was a case not too long ago about an agent who had a buyer and was requested to share some feedback through the seller's agent. He did so because, well, it was negative feedback. So it wasn't for the buyer at that particular time. They had some negative thoughts on the property and that agent shared those negative thoughts. Fast forward a few days, a week, whatever it might have been, and the buyers had a change of heart. They wanted to write an offer. So the buyer agent wrote the offer. The seller agent and the sellers noticed the names, noticed obviously the agent, and put 2 and 2 together and said, hey, these are the same folks that had all those negative things to say about our property. Now, they, according to this case, made things much more difficult for the buyer and buyer agent in terms of negotiations. They weren't willing to negotiate the same way they probably would have if they didn't already have those emotional attachments to that negative feedback and understanding who these buyers were. Now, once the offer was negotiated, it was accepted, and that was fantastic for the buyers and the sellers. That said, the buyers then later on, after the offer's done and they're moving into their new home, realized and heard that the buyer agent, so their agent representing them, shared that negative feedback, in which case potentially, and probably, who knows, made the negotiations worse for them. So they sued their agent. So now the buyer agent was sued for a substantial amount of money. So what happened there is the agent had to pay. Now, that left the industry with a new case. Do you share feedback, especially if it's exceptionally negative? Because in reality, the buyer could have a change of heart, and that feedback in that particular case, according to everybody there, negatively impacted the negotiations. So, as an agent, even myself, I'm a little more constructive on how I share that feedback and what I share. Because again, I don't ever want to compromise my clients, so my buyers, on the ability to negotiate and or obtain the property of their dreams. So sometimes you just don't share feedback because, well, the case went across North America, Canada, and a lot of us industry professionals are aware of that said case and are going to navigate accordingly.